So your brain is controlling the regulation and the timing of these hormones through the menstrual cycle, okay? The progesterone, as it peaks, right, what it's doing, it's helping to stimulate the growth of the endometrium so that it can hold a fertilized egg if there's a fertilized egg. And if there's no fertilized egg, as the progesterone levels drop and the estrogen levels drop towards days 26, 27, 28, okay, that's then begins the menses and it starts all over again and we release, and there begins your monthly cycle again. Okay, it's also noteworthy that um, that each cycle is you are producing, or a woman is producing, new waves of hormones. You're not just recirculating the same hormones. So these hormones that are being released and utilized, and the timing is so critical, is they have to be metabolized, broken down through your liver's detoxification pathways, and cleared out to make room for the next month's hormones. So there's a delicate dance between the brain's communication to the ovaries, the timing of this, how much estrogen and how much progesterone that you're producing in their ratios to each other at different times of the month. So again, estrogen way more dominant in the second week of the first half of the cycle. Ovulation, the release into the fallopian tubes, then we're going to prepare the uterine lining for the fertilization, and more progesterone dominant. So the first thing that happens for so many women is there's a lot of timing issues. So if the progesterone is being released too soon or even too late, there's going to be issues there. And if the estrogen levels are releasing too early or too late or staying too high, there's issues here. So there's a lot that goes on in all these mechanisms. Now, that being said, let me put this to side for a second. And many of you are pretty much familiar with this graph. I talk about it all the time, right? But this graph, shows us that science has explained to us some 20 years ago that they discovered a super system to the body. And that super system is known as the neuroendocrine immune super system, NEI for short, neuroendocrine immune super system. And what that means more simply in English, neuro refers to your brain. Endocrine is your entire hormone system. So it's all the hormones of your body. So it includes your sex or steroid hormones, estrogens, progesterone, testosterone. It includes thyroid hormones. It includes androgen testosterones, and it even includes stress hormones like cortisol. So the entire hormone cascade is part of the endocrine system, right? And about 80% roughly of your immune system is in your gut. So this neuroendocrine immune system is really a brain hormone gut super system. It's one system. So you cannot have hormone dysregulation or timing issues of hormone issues or production of hormone issues that is dysregulating and it not be impacted by or have consequences related to brain and related to your gut and your immune system. It's one integral system. This is why your brain has an influence over these hormones and your hormones have an influence over over brain, right? And your gut and immune system have an impact on brain and hormones. It's one integral system. So you can't have a discussion with a person who says, I have hormone imbalance problems, or I have menstrual problems, or have significant PMS problems, and not take into consideration the gut environment, the immune system, and the brain equally as a contributor to why there is dysregulation here. And this is something that is not looked at or considered in the traditional medical model, right? The simple answer is here is just there's a hormone problem and put you on birth control, right? Which is synthetic hormone treatments. All right, so what I want to do here is jump to another slide, okay? If I can remember where I put this. And I want to show you, because I want to get into the connection between your gut environment and hormone dysregulation, and more specific to the question, which is, why is there monthly debilitating PMS symptoms? Now, again, there are many reasons for that, right? And they all have to be investigated. But a primary place that you have to begin is in your digestive environment, your gut, called the microbiome. All right, so there's a term called dysbiosis, right? And dysbiosis is a term meaning that the the growth of bad bacteria in the gut environment is overgrowing or overcrowding good bacteria. The term microbiome refers to the entire ecosystem of the gut environment, which is filled with, just trillions of organisms, bacteria, viruses, parasites, yeast, and fungi and stuff, right? But like billions of bacteria. And we have good bacteria and bad bacteria, but they coexist, right, in what we call an ecosystem. And as long as they're coexisting and they have relative ratios to each other, they can live in harmony, okay, and things go along. But so many things in life, from stress and diet and sleep and moods and exercise and all of these things that we talk about, have a huge implication in disturbing or creating imbalances in this gut microbiome in favor of crowding out the good guys and producing an overgrowth of bad bacteria, which can actually even grow into what is called opportunistic bacteria. That term is called dysbiosis. Okay. Now, when you have in your gut microbiome, there is a new term, and it's called, if you can see it on this graph here, it's called estrobolome. Crazy names, right? Estrobolome dysfunction, but estro meaning estrogen. This is a new term. It's called estrobolome, meaning the impact of specific bacteria in your gut and their impact, their influence on your estrogen hormone metabolism, right? That's how important this stuff is. So that's known as estrobolome. What that means is that there are bacteria, okay, that activate or stimulate an enzyme. Let me put this to the side for a second. I'm going to show you something here on a stool test called the GI effects test. Okay, this is the test that we run. This is just a sample report. But down here in the bottom of this test, you're going to see something here. It's called beta glucuronidase. Fancy name. All right. But beta glucuronidase is an enzyme. It's an enzyme, right? And what do enzymes do? They change things. And the role of this enzyme is to break down and metabolize estrogen and clear it out of the body, okay? To help us put us in healthy estrogen balance so that when the next wave of estrogen is produced by the ovaries and is circulating, is we don't have too much of it, right? That's what this enzyme is responsible for doing. But many different types of bacteria that inhabit the gut environment have an influence on increasing and or decreasing this enzyme activity. So enzyme, that's how powerful the gut microbiome is. So the gut microbiome is influencing this enzyme's activity. And so what happens in dysbiosis, what happens when we get an overgrowth of these bacteria, this enzyme activity turns on. It gets higher and higher and higher. And so in a lot of the stool tests that we run, we see this enzyme we see it elevated. It's too high. So what does that mean? When this enzyme gets too high, what it does is it changes the form of estrogen that should be cleared, and it turns it back into the active form that gets pulled back into circulation. Meaning, instead of clearing the estrogen, this enzyme is pushing more estrogen back into circulation. So now you have the estrogen that should be cleared that's coming back into circulation, plus your body is manufacturing estrogen. So your estrogen pool is elevating. It's putting a person into estrogen dominance. Okay, so back to a graph. So if this dysbiosis in the gut, if the dysbiosis in the gut is contributing potentially to an increase in the enzyme that's causing an increase in estrogen, all of a sudden, now your monthly cycle comes along and we're in the follicular phase. And instead of the estradiol levels pooling down here, flatline for the first week along with progesterone, the estrogen levels can be more estrogen dominant, way too much estrogen relative to the progesterone, influenced by the gut microbiome, which is now leading to significant debilitating PMS. So there's a delicate balance between estrogens, progesterones, and testosterone, okay, throughout the monthly cycle. Okay, and that ratio, that balance is really important for healthy menstrual cycles. So I'm just giving you one window, but it's a really big window. So anyone who has uh, PMS problems, dysregulations with PMSs, whatever the symptoms are that you're experiencing, certainly the gut environment is a key place.